welcome back everyone. Laure here. Joining me right now is Mission after the big win of AHaHaCiK. Congratulations for making it to the group stage. I have one question about the game. Feels like this morning the blue side was stronger than usual, except for last game, of course. Could you explain why?
首先恭喜你们进到小组赛的一个部分，这样子。那今天想问你的一个问题是，今天的比赛似乎蓝方好像都占据优势，除了最后一场以外，你可以跟我们讲解一下为什么蓝方有这样子的一个效果吗？
其实我们原本都觉得红方比较好，但是不知道打了，就是看昨天的比赛都是蓝方赢，然后我们也不太懂为什么，就是直接选蓝方，对，然后就会 BP 比较好，我也不知道原因。
So originally we actually thought that red side might have been stronger, but we saw yesterday's games where the blue side actually came out more times and we just went blue side ourselves. I'm not really sure why the reason is, but it seems to be better on blue side.
Okay, well, let's see how this develops for the rest of the competition. Now, talking about your picks, we often see you guys go for the same picks, especially on top side and jungle. Aren't you afraid that it's going to become an issue maybe later in the competition?
看你们目前的比赛，你们似乎在上路跟打野这个位置的话，选的角色都是差不多的。那你们会就是觉得说之后这样子选，可能会造成一些困难吗？
就是其实团练的时候都有练到蛮多，但是其实就像李欣这种，就是他玩得很好，但是他其实也蛮多都会的，所以应该没有问题。
So in our scrims, we actually practice a lot of champions, and for Crash's, Lee Sin is very good, but he also plays a lot of different champions, so we don't think it will be an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, they kept on giving Lee Sin open, so that makes sense. Now, talking about you, you're often referred as one of the key elements of the team, especially in the mid to late game. Do you feel pressure on your shoulders?
很多人说你是 HK 中后期一个非常重要的点位这样子，那你会对自己你会觉得自己身上很有压力来 carry 吗？
其实不会，我后面的 carry 也应该只是做扣这样。那如果我们后面的 carry 来说的话，比较像是 Unify， 它是算是我们后期的保证这样。
So not really. I think the way I carry in the late game is mainly through my shot calling, but we have Unified for our late game actual hard carrying.
Oh, okay. Thank you for these insights. Now, moving to the group stage, any mid laners you're looking forward to facing?
进到小组赛，你有想要对上哪一个中路选手吗？
就想对上 Caps， 因为2年前被他打爆了，这次我想要报仇这样。
I really want to face Caps because he defeated me 2 years. He smashed me 2 years ago, and now I want revenge.
Ah, revenge time. Hopefully you will get it. Thank you very much for the interview, and thank you, Clement, for the translation as always. Now back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Laure. It'll be interesting to see which group AHaHaCiK get drawn into. I'd like to welcome Venius to the analyst desk. And just before we dive into Splyce versus UOL, I would like to award the Oppo Player of the Series to Kaiwing. We had quite a difficult time narrowing down exactly who was going to be our Player of the Series, but Kaiwing won the vote.
I think bot lane, absolutely, in a series that was about the Baron setups, the neutrals, and getting active on the map. This is a player that linked up very well with his jungler, as you're kind of seeing here. There were ganks top, there were ganks mid all over the place, and in late game team fights, we were talking about the Rakan. He came up huge.
Yeah, absolutely nicely done. Congratulations to AHaHaCiK and Kaiwing. Now, in our next series, we've got a few familiar faces, at least as far as the team names are concerned, clashing on the Rift. For years, Splyce's Vizicsacsi and Xerxe fought to send Unicorns of Love to Worlds, and failed. They did not do it. This year, both, however, them and their former team made it, but only one will advance to the group stage. This is an old EU org that relocated to the LCL, has a whole host of new CIS players taking on EU's third seed. It is a very different UOL, but before we dive into the differences, let's start with some Splyce expectations. They're the fans. A lot of our viewers are going to know more. Day 1 versus day 3, Vedius, what's your
Oh, it was quite the contrast. And they came in on day 1. I was having questions such as, are Splyce the best performing team in play-ins? And I was a little hesitant to say for sure, but honestly, they looked very clean. They looked calculated. Xerxe was dominating in the early game, and they were team fighting exceptionally well. But then you swap that over to their second day of performances, and they were taking bad fights. Their players were getting caught out out of position. They were fumbling in the mid game, which is something that we have often criticized this team for during the regular season. And one of the big questions we have, and I think many fans have going into this series, is which Splyce will show up in this best of 5.
We are going to find out. Let's turn our attention to the Unicorns of Love and discuss their group stage performances. They were on the verge of winning their group, and they ended up getting obliterated by Clutch in the tiebreak.
Yeah, unfortunate end to the group stage, but the best of 5 is where they're looking to make it count, and you were kind of setting up this match, the battle of the European representatives, all EU org, and I super like the fact that this iteration of Unicorns of Love, they play through the domestic players, and AHaHaCiK in the jungle, Nomanz in the mid lane. The 1-2 punch of this mid-jungle duo is where a lot of their action happens. They have weird picks, they have interesting drafts, but it really is those two to look at as this one tracks on forward.
And I wanted to tunnel in a little bit more on these drafts that we're seeing from the Unicorns of Love, because their 2 wins against Clutch, when you look at the drafts on paper, they were not what we would expect for a traditional World Championship draft. We saw some Kales, we saw some Heimerdinger bot lane, we saw Tristan mid lane. This is what they ran in day 1, and you'll notice scaling, team fighting is usually the name of the game, with AHaHaCiK on something that he can make plays with in the early game. This was their draft the first time they met. If we swap over to the second time they met, you'll see a very similar pattern. Scaling, team fighting with AHaHaCiK on a jungler that he can have impact on in the early game. And this is a team that likes to wait till the late game, and usually they try and punish their opposition's mistakes by utilizing these team fights later on into the game.
This makes me happy, because that doesn't sound like a recipe to beat Splyce. They're going to wait to late game and try to punish mistakes. This could be a good thing for Splyce. We've only got about 30 seconds before the first draft. I need to put you both on the spot. Who will win the series, and what will the score be?
I'm going to say Splyce 3-0. They've looked pretty dominant. It's going to be a hard uphill battle for UOL.
I feel it's Splyce 3-0. They best perform in best of 5s when they can prepare well for their opponents. And while the drafts might be difficult, I think they know what to expect from UOL.
Just want to point out that Ejim has already been once wrong in a prediction today. Let's hope he's not wrong twice. Let's get the series going as we hand it over to Dracos and Ender for game 1.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. Honestly, just excited to cast a series of this magnitude, Unicorns of Love versus Splyce. It's a deja vu clash. The orgs obviously have a ton of history. It's a different story, however, for the players. As for many of the names on stage, it's the first time at Worlds, but not the names you'd expect. Vizicsacsi, first best 5 at Worlds. How crazy does it feel to say that?
It's just crazy to consider that when you look at his tenure in the LEC, the 7th most experienced player in terms of games played, but finally has a chance on this stage. But even with the history between these two organizations, only one of them will move on to the group stage, and that's what we get to find out, Dracos.
And for me, looking at the way these two teams stack up, you heard it on the desk already, but the jungle matchup is absolutely going to be pivotal. And for Splyce, I feel like they come into this one a little bit favored. And I don't just say that because I'm an LEC caster, but you're looking at their style. They are so good at punishing teams that maybe lack a little bit of consistency. And for the Unicorns of Love, yes, they have that crazy style. Yes, they have those unique picks and unique identity, but it has not been consistent thus far this tournament.
I mean, you have the known quantity of Splyce. You always know what you're going to get when they show up onto the Rift. And then you have the creativity that you mentioned of the Unicorns of Love. We've already seen the Heimerdinger in the bottom lane, paired up with the Fiddlestick support or the Morgana. We've seen Vi in the jungle coming out of AHaHaCiK. And I think that it goes deeper just than champion picks, though, for these players. Specifically, AHaHaCiK in the jungler is the wild card for this team. So often, he is changing up his jungle paths and going into games, looking to be as creative as possible so that no other team can actually figure out what he's doing or where he is on the map.
And I'm curious to see if the picks back that crazy play style as well. If he does go for something like the Vi, obviously not very successful. And that's the thing. I'm wondering how much of what this team wants to experiment is going to work out for them today. We know the Heimerdinger is terrifying. We were running kind of mock draft simulations against each other earlier, Ender, and the Heimer was an intense pick, and I kind of expected to be banned after running through a lot of the simulations, but Splyce might have other ideas on how to deal with something like that.
It's certainly a possibility. I think the most interesting thing about going through these mock drafts was that when you were doing them, it was super easy to draft or Splyce. You always sort of know what you're going to get with them. We're talking, prioritizing their bottom lane picks very early on to the draft, taking a blind pick, safe option for Vizicsacsi, and then allowing, Humanoid to be on something that does have that late game insurance to carry as well. Whereas the Unicorns of Love, it was all over the place. You never knew, do they actually want to go for these mages in the bottom lane and really mix it up and pick ban, or maybe sometimes just go look in standard?
And I think for us, we tried to identify what consistencies we could on the side of the Unicorns 11. It feels like Nomanz is pretty consistently in the camp of scaling. He likes to have an option that, you know, can survive early game, can do okay, and then can be a huge powerhouse in mid to late game skirmishes. But that does very much limit what he can bring to the table. Time to see, though. Unicorns Love, no doubt, will have something special cooked up for this best of 5. And the question is, do we see it here in game 1? They are on the blue side. Splyce, of course, having the luxury of final pick on the red. See how this draft unfolds.
And Splyce is a team we always talk about in the LEC that are good at preparing against their opponents, so we'll have to see what kind of counters they have up their sleeves. Already, the standard bans for Splyce throughout the entire tournament thus far has been Pantheon and Syndra, and then leaving open one ban to target away at the opponent. That's where we could think something like the Heimerdinger is focused down, or perhaps even Morgana if they want to lock in that Xyricon early.
And surprised to see Unicorns Love be the ones to ban the Qiyana away. Of course, nothing that Xerxe hasn't pulled out. It has been incredibly powerful, but would have the luxury of first picking it if it was there. Splyce also being the team to ban away Rakan. So a lot not necessarily going as I might have expected it coming into this pick ban.
Yeah, this is a little curious here. We'll have to see what they do end up going for, because another pick, as both the Lovers duos get eliminated from the map, is the Gangplank. For Vizicsacsi up in the top lane has been such a good fallback pick for him. If it's not first picked here on the side of Unicorns of Love, it would have to be for Splyce.
But it is. And it is indeed first pick, and most likely going into the hands of Boss, and this makes a ton of sense. Gangplank has been a very solid pick for both these top lanes.
So now I'm looking at Kobbe probably prioritizing the Kai'Sa. That's been his sort of go-to pick once the Xayah is removed from the board. But no, it's going to be the Cho'Gath for Vizicsacsi in the top lane. I like this. A more unique pick for him. He does love those tanks that have fallen out of flavor.
And look, Ender, if you're at home and you're watching, you're like, Casters, you told me that Splyce were going to draft the normal stuff. We were wrong. And you had to wonder, Vizicsacsi, how is he going to go toe-to-toe with Boss? Well, this is your answer. He's going to pull out something new, but also something old. Historically, Chachi has been, you know, a fantastic Cho'Gath when it's been in meta, and now we have to find out if this is the latest pick to join the rotation on 9/19, but the Kha'Zix now come, it's a full Void part.
Yeah, I don't know which Void monster I want to talk about here, because Cho'Gath, you figure, in lane against the GP, does have pushing options. With those Vorpal spikes, he has the ability to clear waves relatively quickly, and has gank assist in the form of the Q knockup if Xerxe does want to get involved topside early on. But on the other side of the board, we have to talk about the Kha'Zix, because this is a pick that has been picking up so much steam in solo queue, but we haven't really seen that transition over to the professional stage. This is a terror. Once you get that first evolution, a lot of people like to look for that R evolve to maximize the passive damage and really just get scrappy inside of the jungle.
And find out what the early jungle matchup looks like. Xerxe going for the Nocturne, something we've seen him have success on domestically, but not necessarily something you would normally associate with a lot of early game impact. The final pick will be the Thresh, locked in from the side of Splyce, taking something away from Edward, making sure Norskeren gets something that he's comfortable on. But Kai'Sa and Xayah are both taken away from Kobbe, so he's going to have to dig a little bit deeper into that champion pool of his to find something that can work for the team.
You know, we did see him pull for that Jhin, you know, the last day that he did play on the stage here at Worlds, after a lot of marksman bans were thrown his way. And I sort of expect to see Unicorns of Love go for that strategy, because right now you've matched top lane picks, you've matched jungle picks. Unicorns have that ADC locked in already, so you can try to limit the pool here from Kobbe, while Splyce, as you would expect, are trying to take away safe engage options for Edward. He loves that Nautilus picks down in the bottom lane, and with the Rakan banned away, the Thresh picked as well, a lot of his tools and options are running out. The All-Star is the other one that I think would be a good fit into his wheelhouse.
Of course, the options being pulled away in the AD carry department as well. The Jinx, an interesting one for me, not necessarily something I would immediately associate with. Honestly, any player in the current meta has obviously seen a few fringe picks, but not something that's been picked up on the regular. The Twisted Fate, though, does make a lot of sense. We were talking about earlier today. Very safe champion, can do a lot for the team if it's not put behind early in the game.
And this is something Splyce do a lot on red side, is they will ban the Twisted Fate away and then another pick like the Nautilus that we saw here, and then save their mid lane pick for last. Make sure you get the counter pick there. You already know what the ADC is going to be on the other side, so while you don't know the support, I think Kobbe should be more than happy to lock in his marksman right here, so that Humanoid can get a hard counter matchup up against Nomanz, who typically looks for more scaling picks.
Ooh, this is interesting, but instead they're going to lock in the Akali for Humanoid. They ban the TF away. The Syndra is gone as well. Maybe they feel like all of the solid laning matchups to it are gone. The Pantheon, the Qiyana also taken off the board, and they're going to give last pick to Kobbe. in the ADC position, and it's a wide open pool. Kobbe plays a lot of different champions, huge champion pool. He mostly plays them only one time each. He plays like 10 Kaisa games, then one of every other champion, but still, something that you do have to respect, and for now, UOL going to lock in the rest of their composition. The Morgana for Edward, something that's been banned a ton, and the scaling for Nomanz in the mid.
And this is what I was sort of concerned about with Humanoid locking in something like the Akali so early on. Now Nomanz, who likes to play these scaling picks, knows what his matchup is going to be. So he grabs himself the Kale, who isn't going to really be pressured pre-level 6 until he gets his range by something like the Akali. And then once Akali comes online with that ultimate, that ult cooldown is over 2.5 minutes long on the side of Akali, so Nomanz should have the safety he needs to survive in that mid lane.
When push comes to shove, it's time for the Kobbe Jhin. You know, something that he has always gone back to. Most people think of sneaky, reckless, some of the first adopters of this champion, but Kobbe has always been going back to it when his champion pool has been focused. When all the priority picks have been taken away, you can rely on it, and it does give a lot of setup for the side of Splyce, a lot of follow-up as well.
It's really interesting because both of these compositions have very strong, assassin junglers, fighters in the mid lane as well. But I consider they don't have a lot of hard engage. They have a lot of soft engage tools from range. The Gangplank ultimate on one side. They have to play off the Evolve W slow from Kha'Zix as well as the bindings from Edward. While the side of Splyce, they have Thresh hooks. They have Jhin from range to try and slow down targets, and then Nocturne to go ahead and fly on in here. So these compositions are not going to be the easiest to execute whatsoever, but I definitely think that the emphasis needs to be on Splyce to make plays early, because scaling certainly goes to the side of UOL with both the Gangplank and the Kale.
And have to see, can they weather the storm? Can they survive the early game? Splyce not necessarily set up to make plays pre-6 with the likes of Nocturne. That said, you have to respect the CC setup of a Cho'Gath, the CC setup of a Jhin. Both these teams putting a lot on the table here in game 1. Splyce showing us something new in the Cho'Gath, a return to something old in the form of Kobbe's Jhin, and the Morgana. You got the GP, you got the Kale. I just feel like this is a UOL special on the opposite side.
Yeah, I really like a lot of the options they got here. The scaling threat with the Gangplank and that global ability. And then AHaHaCiK. Everyone's eyes are going to be on the jungle matchup here and whether or not AHaHaCiK can use this Kha'Zix to pop off early.
And it's time to see one final spot in the group stage remaining. Hong Kong Attitude, Clutch Gaming, Damwon Gaming. But if you can't hear that, that is the sound of the Unicorns of Love fans. And they are here. They are loyal till the end, no matter what league, no matter where they go. The UOL fans follow, and now it is following them to Berlin. But level 1 setup is something that we have to keep our eye on, Ender.
Look at this prep here. They know that Boss is going to be in the bush. 5 members collapsing onto the Gangplank. Boss is going to have to flash.
Pull back. Really not what he wants. Flashing out in that early lane will be much more difficult. Rupture, not the hardest skill to dodge out when you have boots, but in the early laning phase, it's going to be very difficult to deal with. And now I think I want to bring us back. Actually, I'm going to hold that thought. Make sure the rest of this level 1 doesn't result in any kind of bloodshed. But it looks like Edward spotted on a ward. Humanoid knows not to push any deeper. Xerxe will get a bit of a leash from Norskeren as Kobbe walks over a bit late, but should be fine to get to lane on time.
So seeing Xerxe go start on the bottom side of his jungle right now is, I think, a very clever move from him so that he can pick up his blue buff and then get up towards the top side of the map, because ideally there is room to maybe bully out the Gangplank. Now, we talked about the Cho'Gath versus GP matchup a little bit in the draft, and push is definitely going to go the way of Vizicsacsi, especially because Boss is going to be handing over a leash right off the bat. But this is a situation now where I think that if they were to try to set up a bounce off that tower around the 3-minute mark and then look to gank Boss when he is exposed in that lane after it pushes back, that Xerxe and the rest of Splyce should be looking for that type of move.
And a rough trade for Nomanz in the mid lane, but I do want to keep talking about the jungle matchup because I do think it is pivotal for these teams, especially when you look at the way that both players have played over the course. And you can see a lot more activity, Xerxe, a lot more K+A. He has been the catalyst for a lot of this team's early game action. That said, on the opposite side, one thing you don't see here for AHaHaCiK, something that you track very closely, Ender, is his ability to counter jungle.
Exactly. Out of all the junglers we've seen so far play at Worlds, he has the highest counter jungle percentage of anyone. And that is because he loves to play high risk, high reward League of Legends where he gets into the enemy jungle and tries to steal away camps. He is the unpredictable unpredictable jungler. He is the risky jungler for sure. And in a lot of games, the end result is that he gets a really big lead and is able to use that to carry. But also, there are games for Unicorns of Love where he is a problem, where he does get punished. And that's where I think this jungle matchup becomes so interesting, because Xerxe is a guy that's never going to lose the game for Splyce. He's the consistent rock that, likes to outthink his opponents and try to track them. Sometimes he's the one to pop off early game and get them that lead, but never going to be letting them down. And when you see these two styles clash, one of them will come out on top. Either Xerxe and Splyce can track an AHaHaCiK, or an AHaHaCiK is going to be able to build up big leads on his own.
And one difficult point for Unicorns of Love at this moment in time is that Splyce have two pushing lanes right now in their favor. Vizicsacsi for now able to sustain that top lane push, and Kale, of course, pre-6 early on, can proc Klepto, but can't really do much else to interact with the wave.
So a little bit earlier, I was talking about bouncing the wave in the top lane, and basically what that means is full pushing it in into the tower so that the minion wave will die to the tower before the enemy's minion wave arrives, and then the lane will reset where both minions are in the center of the lane. And Vizicsacsi missed that window by just a little bit. He was a little bit late on that push, so a gank top lane was not going to be ideal. Now you see that a little bit, though, with a lot of ranged minions on Boss's side. That lane is going to push in towards Splyce's side.
Bouncer looking pretty good. Xerxe, is he going to go for the play? Of course, you have the oranges, but it won't stop the knockup.
Oh.
Bit awkward there. Vizicsacsi walking down, trying to look tasty, but here comes Xerxe. Red buff the flash forward. The fear now proc. Boss is going to need to get out, but he's not going to have a chance. First blood comes through. And remember, that flash was gone from level 1. A fantastic punish from Splyce.
And this is the early game plan we are talking about, and Boss gets sort of hung out to dry right there with the lane pushing away from him because an AHaHaCiK started topside and pathed on downward. He had no jungle attention, and lane was in a position where he was able to be ganked. And this is what I mean when we talk about Xerxe. They come in with a very solid level 1 plan. He's able to get that flash with the team and then time that gank around the 3 to 4 minute mark, just like we would have expected.
And that's going to put them in a bit of a difficult situation. I mean, falling behind a Cho'Gath is never ideal. Despite not seeing the champion recently, I can remember him getting feast before you get your ult. It's a pretty miserable experience. And for Nomanz, he's just surviving here, but I feel like he's just going to have to give up a tower plate in this mid lane at some point.
One of the hard things to do when you're playing a melee mid laner is actually get the tower plate. So while Humanoid is going to be pushing in all the time, you need consecutive waves to build up, and it's the minions that do most of the damage. And then you sort of walk forward for that one cheeky auto attack to get the plus 160 gold. But Humanoid going to be using the TP to get back into lane, and he is building up quite a CS lead. So while we talked about in draft, Nomanz did have in theory the counter pick, the laning phase is not where it's working out for him. Where Nomanz thinks it's going to be beneficial is the fact that he will be able to scale up and then become very strong.
Oh, potentially a big mistake from Innaxe stepping forward there. Black Shield now already used. Xerxe's just going to walk his way in. Edward in trouble. The exhaust comes out. Surely set to fall. Xerxe grabbing another kill, but Humanoid on the way.
Humanoid on the way. There's 4 versus 1 under the tower. Innaxe, he's going down.
Xerxe taking the tower for now, just getting the setup, just trying to make it as clean as possible. Kobbe just going to fade away there. Captive audience indeed. So easy to land the deadly flourish on that one and knock him out.
Hey, this early game already reminding me of day 1 Xerxe, but now an AHaHaCiK trying to make his move in the top lane. Vizicsacsi does have the flash, but not a lot of HP.
And level 6.
He can turn this.
He can just try to commit to the play here. Knockup does not connect, though. Maybe this is the moment where they can turn. Boss can't get any lower, but he practices grasp. The flash forward, the silence. Chachi wants it so bad, but he's just walking away. That is one very alive Tyrant and one very dead Void Monster on the top side.
Vizicsacsi trying real hard to pick up that kill, but not quite in range. Unicorns will have needed this in the early game because already Xerxe was running over the map. You see this play down bottom lane. Very, very smart coming through from them. You see the Black Shield goes on to Innaxe, and N-word, he has nowhere to go. The hook immediately goes on down towards him, and even through the exhaust, Xerxe is able to pick up the kill. This is now a 2-0-1 Nocturne pre-level 6, so he's going to have his warrior finished pretty soon with that level 6 mark, and then you just can't beat this guy.
And just credit to the side of Xerxe. Hold that thought. And AHaHaCiK is going to get knocked up. Feast is on the way. And AHaHaCiK is going to try to jump over the wall, but there is definitely someone waiting for you there in the darkness. How fitting. And AHaHaCiK now forced to flash away. Humanoid's there too! How many people are going to stand in front of this man? There was no path out. He jumps, surprise Splyce member. He leaps, surprise Splyce member.
This is exactly what I was talking about, though, Dracos. An AHaHaCiK will go for these invades so often. And one thing we didn't get to set up is that Splyce is a team, they listen to Xerxe. He is so vocal on this roster, so when he thinks he's getting counter-jungled, you better believe that the rest of his team is going to respond. Vizicsacsi was just walking to lane, but Humanoid was called all the way up to pick up that kill.
And look, if people stop killing each other for 30 seconds here, we got to take stock of what's happened. Because Splyce, they were crushing before the kills started coming in. They already had 1,000. Now they're up about 2K in their favor. And this is only going to go from bad to worse as the Nocturne continues to get ahead, the Warrior enchantment now coming through. But this is what you said they needed to do, Ender. You said the scaling very clearly on the side of UOL. UOL are not getting the chance to scale.
Not even a little bit, and that's going to be super problematic for them, especially now as Humanoid has a kill and an assist in mid lane, already has the Sork shoes, and there's no MR on the opposite side, so he's always going to have control over this mid lane, I feel like, for quite some time, because, you know, he can just drop the Shroud and then spam out the shurikens to try and clear away the minion waves. Now Xerxe is going to be spotted out on vision here, but I don't really know if AHaHaCiK and the Unicorns of Love can do much about it. They do have Cannon Barrage to get involved in this fight, but Xerxe is just so strong at the moment. Just the advantage of having Warrior as opposed to the Caulfields and Blue Smite on the other side is a bonus 40 AD for the Nocturne, which is a gigantic number in any kind of fight.
And now the Mountain as well, which is going to make it that much easier in the fights to come. And this is just not a team comp that you want to be behind. Because if you try to start a fight on a Jhin and you start to lose, you're not getting away, he has ultimate. And the same is true for a Nocturne. Try to start a fight on a Nocturne, he still has ult. You better be sure that you are going to win, or it's just going to completely fall apart.
Yeah, be scared of the damage dealers, but also be scared of Vizicsacsi, because yes, he's fallen down once, but you look at the Unicorns of Love, they're very low range composition. Even Kale and Kai'Sa, when they do have range, are on the lower end of a lot of carries. So Vizicsacsi, he has so much effective output when people are nearby him, because the Rupture becomes easy to land, you can land a multi-man silence as well, and then the Feast comes in, you can't react. He's very good at setting up for his team just instantly burst through targets. So that makes team fighting on a champion like the Kha'Zix even more difficult, because if you get silenced when you go in for an assassination, you just sort of sit there while you get one shot by the Feast as well.
And it is brutal, but once again, the pressure is now on Splyce to execute. You see AHaHaCiK moving in for a bit more counter jungling. High risk, again, I think very high risk, but he does have pressure on the top side, so it won't cost him too much. Needs to be careful though. Ulti now coming in, might want to turn his sights on Vizicsacsi. Doesn't even know Humanoid's there. Time for a bit of stealth and time to leap away. I don't think it's gonna be enough. Ooh, he's juking, but it's not good enough to stop Humanoid. Chasing him down. Is there another proc on the ult? Won't even matter. One more auto, Humanoid just cleans it up.
Really nicely played right there. Humanoid always on the roam. How he often picks up his kills back in the LEC, but working very well with Xerxe, I feel, whether it was punishing the invade attempt from AHaHaCiK or getting up topside to make that gank happen. It's going super well for him, and he's making it on good timings too, because he's not falling behind in CS. A lot of that is carried over from the early laning phase, but oh man.
Shuriken Flip connects, that's huge damage. Electrocute proc is gone. There's no Gunblade here. Humanoid just smashing in trades, and this is something that I think we have to talk about. Humanoid's playing well with the team, but also Kale's a scaling pick, yes, but right now Kale is just useless, losing lane pressure constantly, and Humanoid has been on the top side repeatedly.
And it's really interesting because usually you think about Kale and she's really good into most assassins, because most assassins rely on their ultimate to actually kill you. But because Akali has such a low cooldown on her Q spam as well as the Shroud, she can take a lot of extended trades against you and just whittle you down without even needing to pop her ultimate. So you get one more look in the top lane, the perfect setup from Vizicsacsi to get buffs low enough. Not quite able to get the bonus stats with the Feast mark right there, but Humanoid plays this very, very nicely as well, using all the gap closers to make sure AHaHaCiK has nowhere to go.
Difficult, and you can see Nomanz continuing to get pressured out in the mid lane. Things very quickly going from bad to worse. 2.8k in the favor of Splyce on top of the Mountain Drake. Good news for the Unicorns of Love is the Herald has gone in their favor. Edward now stepping in. The binding won't connect. They're just trying to help Nomanz push out. Everything's get a bit easier for the Kale. Obviously, now that she's level 6, has the range. Was nerfed a bit. I believe 525 now. Will be 575 as she gets more stacks, of course. But yeah, Ender, at this point, it just feels like Splyce are completely dictating the pace of the game, and it's just on UOL to grab what they can.
Well, it's going to get even faster, too. Norskeren walked into the enemy jungle to put down deep vision to make sure that this play was going to be easy. Now, Xerxe going to miss the spell shield right there and take a little bit of damage as the Rift Herald is placed in the top lane. So this is a chance right now for Unicorns of Love to get a lot of money. All they need to do is hold on bottom lane. And with the Cannon Barrage too, if the push does come through, I think Boss can use that to stall out a counter siege from the side of Splyce.
They're going to go for the dive on either side though. Nocturne ulti now coming in. Black Shield goes golden, uses the stopwatch, tries to buy a better time, but Xerxe gets down to the tower. He turns on to Norskeren. Norskeren, the perfect highway, the perfect avenue of escape. They're going to get that kill as well, but the hook still goes through from the corpse of Norskeren. Innaxe is going to be forced to flash away. Kobbe trying to swag it up, but it can't happen. But no, Humanoid here to clean up the fight. Splyce coming on top for now. The flash right into the binding. Here comes the curtain call, but it's not going to be curtains for anyone. One more, maybe? One shot connects. Humanoid wants to finish it off. Nomanz there to block. Not even necessary, but now he's rooted. The stopwatch kills him. This is an insane skirmish. Such a top lane. And Chachi's still getting dived. The knockup is there. AHaHaCiK goes in. AHaHaCiK goes golden. They're going to finish it off. One shot, one kill. No, he's taking the tower. Vizicsacsi. He stops Innaxe.
Unbelievable right there, because Splyce do win the extended dive in the bottom lane. Humanoid picking up 4 kills now. 4-0-1. And Vizicsacsi even able to trade on the top side of the map. It is just continuing to stack more and more in the favor of Splyce. And the more Unicorns try to force plays, it feels like the worse they end up here, Dracos.
But you look at the gold ender. Still 1.3k between them. And Unicorns will have clearly a lot more confidence to take these plays. And we are getting a kill a minute at this point, so look, I'm not complaining.
It's exciting. That's for sure. Watch this play down bottom side one more time, because the Cannon Barrage, I feel like, comes in straight underneath the tower to try and pick up a kill. That's what we were waiting for, to maybe clear away the minion wave, but then Norskeren to land the last second hook and eventually set up for Kobbe to try to get this kill. The ultimate effectively wasted here from Nomanz. Innaxe gets down not a whole lot of bonus damage off of that spell. If Nomanz held on to that, this dive underneath the tower probably would have gone even better for the Unicorns, but ultimately a nice Zonius from Edward will delay the inevitable, but Kobbe is perfect on the timing right there to make sure that that kill does go over. And the top lane just continues here. Vizicsacsi landing everything on towards Boss, who tries to flash away, but then realizes he picked up the tower. Not sure quite how that happened, whether it was Corrupting Potion keeping him in combat with Vizicsacsi, or perhaps the passive stack right there. And that does look odd visually, but the knock-up made it...
Well, that's like the only time you get a true headshot in League of Legends. You're literally knocked in the air. It's the only part of the hitbox you can hit. There you go. And here we go. Breakneck pace of game. UOL speeding it up. We have to check in on the gold once again. 1.5k difference, but Jhin obviously very comfortable on the Swifties plus the Infinity Edge. And UOL have managed to get a lot of turret plates, courtesy of the Rift Herald crashing. But can they actually get anything done against Vizicsacsi? This man has been a rock on the top side.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because we've been saying, you know, everything going pretty well for Splyce, but I think Unicorns of Love are coming out of this, you know, only at 1,500 gold down. They do have a lot of scaling options on their side. So if they can keep this gold gap just about the same for the next 10 minutes, they're going to be looking real happy. But at the same time, Splyce do now have all the tools to try and accelerate the pace of the game. You know, you finished off the first item, Gunblade for Humanoid, the Infinity Edge for Kobbe, all the damage is there. And on top of that, you have the Righteous Glory from Vizicsacsi, which is going to be so brutal when trying to set up ganks onto Boss in side lanes. You run him down with Xerxe coming around, that's free kills every time.
The ultimate, trying to find the knock, will not connect onto Boss. Xerxe now locked him under the tower. The GPL not coming out. Xerxe has to be careful, but Vizicsacsi is there to tank. He takes one too many. No, perfectly placed. He's still going to get the 1-for-1, though. Messy tower dives back to back. Vizicsacsi's still going to get one, but the 1-for-1 in the end.
Yeah, it felt a little bit overforced. Now Unicorns have a chance to attack on the opposite side of the map. No one here can respond unless TPs do come through, but it is very hard to dive onto Akali because of her Shroud.
Also, she's 4-0-1 and has a Gunblade.
Sure.
But Kale is pushing in. Obviously, full stacks, level 11 now coming through. Important point for the Kale. Just continues to get stronger and stronger. One item done. And as we mentioned, scaling an important thing to consider for the side of Unicorns of Love. They're fighting like they're dead even in the game, which is something that you definitely have to respect, but Splyce can't afford to fumble and put more gold into the pocket of GP like this.
So I think the coordination here just wasn't quite there. The Q missing from Vizicsacsi at first, and then he's just sitting on the edge of tower range saying, I can tank tower shots for you, but I think he maybe would have been better off just committing into that fight right off the bat, popping his ultimate, and then trying to escape, but ultimately I think fumbled that tower dive just a little bit.
Nomanz looking a lot more confident now. Oh, you spend the first 11 games or 11 levels of the game, Humanoid bullying this lane out, but things are starting to look a lot more difficult. Almost impossible to use a full burst rotation when Kale has that ultimate just available to save her life at any point.
It's really interesting how Splyce are trying to play the map right now, because they're actually leaving Humanoid on the weak side. All the, you know, the river line of vision is this pathway up towards top lane where Humanoid isn't going to be around. They just want to continue to bully Bossier, probably because they think they have a better shot of diving a Gangplank than a Kale.
I mean, Chachi is just getting tanked here. This tower is going to do negative damage to him in a few minutes. They're going to walk right under here. Boss, I don't think he can make his way out of this one. Chachi tanks a few extra shots, and they pick up the kill. It's been a long time since you've seen a tank in the top lane, but that is the power. It's very easy to dive.
You call that a tank, I call that someone with a lot of HP that still assassinates you, because Cho'Gath doing a whole lot of work right there as they're able to push out that lane and deny minions. I actually wonder if this is the type of game where you mind leaving that tower up to keep looking for dives as bot lane. Dive in progress.
Ulti comes out. Humanoid though just waiting. Can leap back in right as it falls. Nomanz backing out. Black Shield is there. Humanoid shut down. Tons of gold now going into the pocket of the Kha'Zix. They're going to grab the tower as well. Just as Splyce grabbed one. Very even play, but now the GP might just be dead once again. It's not even the GP, it's the Kai'Sa trying to leap to safety. Vizicsacsi on the hunt. Not going to be enough. That's Attack on Titan if I've ever seen it. Way too easy for Vizicsacsi to just walk up and out of that one.
All right, so both sides of the map going to be trading here right now. I think Unicorn's going to be like, okay, Nomanz, you're getting your money, even though Boss is getting denied. We were always going to rely on Kale more in the late game, but for Splyce, very, very happy with the sequence events. Now that they've knocked out that mid lane tower as well, they can put that vision deeper inside of Unicorn's territory. You already see that effect going on that blue buff side of the Unicorn's jungle. And next, the transition is going to be towards this Infernal Drake spawning in 30 seconds. All of Splyce and Unicorns resetting onto the map to potentially contest around this objective. But there are some key ultimates down, you know. All the ultimates except for Edwards on the side of Unicorns. But the Paranoia going to be missing from Xerxe. Humanoid should have it up soon, so Splyce will want to pull the trigger.
Now in trouble. AHaHaCiK going to sidestep there. Xerxe has to run for the hills. Vizicsacsi now running into the midst of the team. The flash out from AHaHaCiK. Nomanz needs to retreat. Kale ult not available. That should be one dead Kale. Vizicsacsi grabs that one. Curtain call now comes out. They're behind the play. That makes the Jhin so incredibly strong. One more shot. Will not connect. Good patience from AHaHaCiK to hold on to the leap. But still, Edward will get knocked up. Still, the Jhin is chasing down. Boots of Swift is tearing him in. And a beautiful hook from Norskeren. 2 more for Splyce, and their gold lead just explodes.
Splyce knew the window they needed to find the fight right there with the spells, with the items under their belt. And now they take full control as they look for even more. Vizicsacsi gets taken very, very low, but they can easily recall here and look for the Infernal.
Kobbe just absolutely fearless. Continuing to step forward. Xerxe is now going to grab the 3rd Drake of the game. 3 for 3 for the side of Splyce. 4K gold lead. For a while there, it was looking pretty even. Unicorns of Love trading blow for blow, but once again, Splyce very much in control.
But I really have to question why Unicorns think fighting there is so key, because all of their ultimates were down, or at least 4 of the 5, Edward, the only one holding on to it. At the same time, this is where Splyce as a composition are going to be so much stronger than the Unicorns. The lead, especially between Vizicsacsi and Boss, going to be massive. And Kai'Sa wasn't even in the fight at the start. They thought they could just assassinate Xerxe, but with the flash over the wall, they realized they were just way too far out of position. And Nomanz, without a flash, without the ultimate either, it's just easy pickings for this team to go ahead and clean up even more on the back half.
Now Humanoid's hunting. Trying to find the knock, and the Black Shield is now gone. The Nocturne just goes in. They're just going to pick him off one at a time. This composition is merciless. Doesn't even need the 4-shot, just use the second one to find another kill. Splyce now can set their sights with the Baron. They have the Mountain Drake, they have 5 members up.
And an AHaHaCiK's gonna be dead for another 25 more seconds. Unicorns of Love have no tank if they are to run in and try and face tank into this river. And Humanoid sitting there waiting to just blow up the first target.
GPL comes out, but it's not nearly as much damage as they need. Humanoid now playing with his food, trying to buy time for the rest of the team. Norskeren locked down, but he's not the center of attention, and that means the Baron will drop in favor of Splyce. Humanoid now going to retreat. The flash forced out. Unicorns of Love getting crushed in this exchange.
Splyce just pick up absolutely everything. Now, for the next 3 minutes, they have the Baron buff, and they have all the winning lanes, you know, with Xerxe's ability to quickly rotate between the two as well. We'll see the initial setup on this play one more time, because it literally was just Humanoid trying to get in range to set up for this assassination. Without that mid lane tower, the Unicorns of Love don't have control over their own jungle, and nothing demonstrates it better than that play right there. As I was saying, now with, you know, the Warmogs finished on Vizicsacsi, I think we just continue to see a Splyce that sieges in mid with 3 members and then looks to collapse with Xerxe, either top lane or bottom lane for the free dives.
Norskeren, though, caught out. Maybe this could be a difference. Kobbe walking forward with the 4-shot. They're going to do a chunk of damage to the GP, but they're still able to close this one out. Now comes the curtain call. AHaHaCiK ready to step forward and try to block. They're not going to make sure Boss doesn't go down. And just can't afford to get caught out there. That's going to waste so much time on the Baron.
Look, it's just a massive blunder right there from Norskeren, because not only does he not have pushing side lanes, right, that are creating pressure, so in theory, you could make something happen. You see Humanoid actually trying to stack the minion waves here, which I think is a very smart choice from him. But at the same time, his allies aren't there either. He sees a Kale on the map. That's the only member, so of course he gets caught out when he walks in towards this bush, and that'll end up wasting a significant portion of this Baron.
Humanoid stack wave, though. Going to be matched by 2 members of the opposite side. UOL not. Their base is not broken open yet. And while it is a massive lead for the side of Splyce, until they close this game, the Kale continues to become a larger and larger threat. It's a similar story for the Kai'Sa. Interesting, though, that she's opting to go for the AP build. Of course, have GP as a source of solid 80 damage on the top side. The Kale, mostly magic. And now the Kai'Sa is going to be a bit of a split as well.
Now, AHaHaCiK has ticked over to level 11, so he has the evolved Q and W for that extra slow from range. Could be effective at chasing down Humanoid.
Running. Using the movement speed from the Shroud as well as he can. Trying to walk away. Edward now fishing. The root is there. They take him out instantly. No longer does the Shroud offer perfect stealth to duck every single point of CC.
Splyce are going to try to trade this for 2 towers at the same time, though, but Unicorns will lick their wounds with this one. This should be effectively the end of the Baron push with 30 more seconds left on Humanoid. Don't think that Baron will be able to be used to crack open the base.
7K gold lead, something that UOL now have to deal with. But the Unicorns fans are still here. They're still waiting. They're still ready. They know this composition. Find them a win in the late game. But Ender, honestly, I think that there's just so much pressure on the side of Unicorns to love to never split up. Because you see Nomanz sitting comfortably on the side lane, but there is a Jhin, there is a Nocturne. If he's ever face-to-face with an Akali and 2 members can suddenly influence a fight, he will go down in an instant. This pick is, or this comp is so fantastic at picking off individual members who are isolated.
Absolutely, and that's sort of the beauty of having this Nocturne in the jungle, and I think AHaHaCiK's Kha'Zix was supposed to be able to try and match that with the Moby Boot purchase, but we just have not seen that come to fruition just yet. Unicorns, they never want to play the full map. They never want to play for side lanes. Their, miracle situation is going to be looking for a later game fight, but even then, while they do have a very powerful backline with the Kale and the Kai'Sa, the front line isn't going to be there, and the dive from Splyce is going to be absolutely massive. So it still is not a free win, even in the late game, because just kiting back is not going to be super easy.
You just don't have a tank, and the enemy team does. You can't afford to make
He's got a righteous glory. He's just chasing you down.
He's gonna walk straight into your face. The ulti now coming out from the Nocturne. Invisible trying to bide as much time as he can, flashing away from the fear. Barrel comes in. Xerxe will back. Oh! Right over the wall!
And the hook.
Clean shot comes in from Kobbe. Deadly flourish. Last auto's gonna connect. That's it. I mean, without a single member available. UOL 4 strong, have to try to hold on. Nomanz now running, the chain CC is there. Black Shield stops it in its tracks. Good on Edward.
Unicorns have to use the Gangplank ult to clear the waves because everyone else needs to step up an auto attack, which just is not going to happen. They'll hold on to their base, but now Splyce are going to pick up their second Infernal Drake. More and more things stacking in their favor. I realistically don't see much of a window now for Unicorns trying to fight against this.
It's just, it only gets harder as the Infernals start to stack. Everyone except for the Cho'Gath going to be happy to have those stats.
They really want this fight. They think someone's going to come and try and face check. You remember how aggressively Unicorns tried to fight around that last Infernal Drake, even without the cooldowns?
They also just have perfect vision in the jungle. And they know the Nocturne alone is more than enough to take this. The Kha'Zix was dead at the start of this, so they can't just wait for the pick. It costs them nothing to try to set that up. Of course, on the opposite side, always have to give a little bit of credence. We talked about scaling. Second item for GP. Not really where he wants to be. Maybe 3 or 4 would be ideal. It's a similar story for the Kale. The good news is the Kai'Sa, after grabbing that wave, should be pretty close to third item. Maybe that can be the difference in these big fights, but if you Kai'Sa ult into a Cho'Gath, he silences you and you die. So it's not easy at any point.
I mean, how do you actually kill Cho'Gath now with Adaptive Helm versus both Kale and Kai'Sa? That is going to be slashing through and cutting down all of the on-hit damage that both of those champions are dealing. And even if you do, chunk him out a little bit, let's be real, you're not going to kill him. He has the Warmogs to heal on up, so you must attack Humanoid, but that's a 3-level lead.
Still doesn't matter. The Kha'Zix invisible wants to change.
Oh, it matters. It matters.
It absolutely matters. Humanoid. Now trying to run away from this one. Nomanz can hopefully clear it out. The 1-for-1. Not ideal, but not bad. The shutdown going over to the side of UOL. A bit over-aggressive from AHaHaCiK.
Definitely worth there for the Unicorns. Of course, Baron has not quite spawned just yet, so not going to be punished off of that. But it will actually be a 10-second window where Baron's going to be on the Rift and AHaHaCiK will not be. So with Humanoid's TP being up, Splyce are still going to try and set up here inside of the jungle, maybe look for a pick.
Well, despite the jungler being down, UOL fans, ravenous, the crowd looking for some action here. Maybe Boss can be the difference maker. Nomanz, if he has to burn his ulti here, it's going to be less than ideal. Vizicsacsi runs right into the Kale. Despite the adaptive, good damage comes out, but it's not enough. The ulti comes in, stopping Xerxe's ult. But now the ultimate comes in from Kobbe on the backside as well. The curtain call, the shutdown now into the jungler. They just did not have the full team there. Humanoid is still down. Norskeren now has to run for the hills. The hook goes wide. The box buys a bit of space. Cho'Gath sees an opportunity, though. He flashes forward. He's looking for a little bit more, but AHaHaCiK can just look to clean up. He's half held by Kobbe. But now
here comes Humanoid.
The win. Humanoid on the backside. Eyes on the Akali. One shutdown. But the Akali can't just clean up. UOL. They'll just look like food to the rest of the team. Humanoid, can he go in? The ultimate
goes.
Available. He wants to get one. He gets shut down in an instant. I can't believe it. It's seemed like a clean, easy closeout for the side of Splyce, but UOL find their moments.
Unicorns of Love find the fight in the jungle right there. The 5 versus 4 as Splyce get caught out. And now, unless there's some miracle to come through with Kobbe's 4th shot, there is no smite for AHaHaCiK. They're actually going to try and wait him out right here. They waiting for the reload. They see him on the ward on the other side.
Will not get it. Baron to the side of UOL. They are right back into this game. A 4K deficit. Double Infernal going to be difficult to go up against, but UOL punishing the mistakes here to the side of Splyce.
Splyce, again, it's a 4v2 right off the bat, but Boss and Nomanz able to kite it back, and then they're stuck inside this tight corridor. Kobbe has to walk away. Just where is the damage coming through from the Splyce team? If Kobbe isn't autoing, if Humanoid isn't even in the fight, they actually can't deal the threat on towards the Unicorns of Love. And this is where they just go way too hard on the side of Splyce. Humanoid's coming around the corner, but he doesn't have his ultimate, so entering this fight is almost impossible. If Humanoid has the R, he can get in here, but without it, Unicorns of Love can just sit pretty, press that A click, and Nomanz now level 16 is going to be pumping out the damage.
And just not tanky enough. Humanoid. The burst damage is there, and you can see happiness, claps, cheers, sighs of relief, every emotional reaction you could assume a Unicorns fan could have in a single coach cam. And Ender, we're talking about a very different game now. 3K deficit still, double Infernal still something that they have to deal with here, but are we just right back onto even footing in the next team fight?
I think we actually might be favoring Unicorns of Love at this point. Look at that. Level 17 Kale, level 15 side on the side of Humanoid. When you get these shutdowns against people that are higher level than you get so much bonus EXP.
He's just going to get deleted. Tries to buy as much time as he can with his Zonies. Can't even make it out of this one. He's running for his life, but Innaxe now on a killing spree, and AHaHaCiK going to run away. Kobbe's still a massive threat. Nocturne just to stop the play in its tracks. There will be a knock up there. GP still willing to move forward. The play does not connect. Norskeren has a hook to dissuade a further dive, but they're just barreling down the mid lane. Unicorns of Love are unrelenting. They want to use this Baron buff as best they can. Kobbe going to try to one-shot. Cannon creep there will clear it out as they set their sights instead on the bottom side of the map. Vizicsacsi walking over. He himself could be caught out. Xerxe forced to spell shield there.
This game is completely turned around, Dracos. There's still Baron buff for the Unicorns to use. Look at their items, too. 3 items on both Nomanz and Innaxe. They have the defensive tools. Kale ultimate, Zhonya's for Morgana, a stopwatch for Nomanz. The dive of Splyce, I actually don't think is enough to kill the Unicorns anymore.
We're also at the point where splitting them up is just not an option. They've got Baron, they're grouped everywhere. 2 in the mid lane. Splyce thinking like they want to attack that one. The rest of the team backing off, instead setting their sights on the Mountain Drake. The last Drake to spawn before Elder.
The game gets real interesting now because on one side you have just rapid fire consistent DPS. That's going to be the Kale, that's going to be the Kayle coming from the Unicorns of Love. So our eyes have to be on those 2 players to be pumping out the DPS and to be staying alive until the end of the fights. Whereas Splyce, their damage comes in bursts. You know, you have Cho'Gath's ultimate, the Nocturne assassination, Humanoid as well, and then Kobbe, he's got 4 shots and then he's got to reload too. So Splyce need to be much more cognizant in these team fights of calling out their major cooldowns. When they can go forward and fight, and when they're on CD, when they go back. Because if they just walk in a line towards the Unicorns of Love, Kale's just going to swat them down.
The AoE is disgusting. I mean, between the Kale and the Acathian Rain from the Kayle, you really have to respect this team. And you know, you have a Mercurial Scimitar. You've got a Maw. You've got an Adaptive Helm. It's not enough. There's too much magic damage. These champions scale too well as you move later in the game for single items to really be the difference maker. It's now all on Splyce to execute in these coming fights to make sure they never end up in a situation where Humanoid is coming to the fight, you know, 10, 15 seconds later than he needs to be.
The question is, can Splyce play full map press one more time? And with how strong the core of Unicorns of Love is, that doesn't seem to be a possibility. So right now, Splyce are sending their soul lanes to push out those sides, but the Unicorns are never going to match them in the 1v1s. They're just going to go over and pick up minions, and they're never going to be forced to match because they are stronger when they group up in the mid lane. Splyce no longer can pressure all 3 lanes simultaneously.
And I feel like if you're Splyce, you're hoping to catch someone out, a rupture into a silence, make sure that they don't even get a chance to do anything in the exchange, because it's only going to get harder. Because you can see, despite really no tanky items for the Kale, actually quite tanky, presumably Resolve Tree taking a bit of overgrowth. It's a similar story for the GP, you know, just the Xerxe, as well as the Phage health coming through on that Trinity Force, and Grass But these champions are getting harder and harder for someone like Humanoid or Kobbe to 100-0 before the enemy team can do anything.
I mean, if you just tick over to the gold numbers right now, you'll see Boss, who was absolutely bullied by Xerxe and Chachi in the early game, now has more money than Vizicsacsi. You see mid lane 2 for Nomanz, an advantage as well. Bottom lane is where there still is a difference, but even then, Innaxe is matching itemization with Kobbe at the moment, and it's all going to come down, I feel like, to a fight around the Baron in one more minute, because Unicorns of Love are just waiting for their moment. They're not pushing forward to get caught out, overextending lanes. They know that time is on their side, and it's just these major neutral objectives coming up in the next few minutes that will determine their fate.
And I feel bad for Kobbe because he's so far ahead, but he's also playing Jhin, and while he can kick fights off, while Curtain Call is a great way to start or finish a fight, it's that middle ground. When the enemies are at 75% health, things are going to be very difficult. You want to be cleaning up. You want the rest of your team to soften them up, and you want to walk through with each and every shot finding a kill on that Jhin, because yes, your attack speed goes up later in the game, but that reload is always going to be miserable because that is the clearest window of opportunity. Anyone in the game can see it to dive on top of you. And who better to do that than a Kai'Sa, than a Kha'Zix? If you ever have to reload in a fight, you're probably going to die instantly.
Definitely something we have to be watching out for. Baron in 20 seconds, and Unicorns of Love have all the vision control they need around this objective. Keep your eye top left corner of your screen right now. There is a control ward on the side of Splyce, so if Vizicsacsi or Humanoid wanted to try and come in from a flank, I think especially an Akali could benefit from that. They can always channel the teleport.
Here comes Chachi. You talked about a flank. There's the Cho'Gath on the side. Black Shield can only protect one. Where's it going to go? Chachi very big. They're trying to shred through him. The GP ult's coming in, but they're just grouped up right into the GP ult. Half health. Got a third of the health taken out. The hook will not connect. Norskeren now in trouble. And Unicorns of Love are just walking down the mid lane. Where's the turn gonna go? Oh, he goes to the backside, the Kai'Sa! That combo was sick, but Humanoid, he can be the difference maker. He can be the one to clear it up. Here comes the curtain call. Humanoid to the backside, but he's been revealed. The shutdown is there. They've stopped the Kai'Sa. But that's all that they have stopped in this exchange. It is a 1-for-1. It is mid for AD carry, and Unicorns of Love have control of the mid lane, which means they have control of the pit, and Splyce will be forced to respond.
A crazy trade right there. Vizicsacsi too far forward, has to use his flash defensively to try and escape without his team right there. Splyce had teleported into the mid lane to try and contest over the wave push, so they could be the ones to dominate vision around the Baron buff, but they lost their marksman, or they lost their mid laner now, so it becomes this contention one more time, where with Kobbe and Vizicsacsi, they will get control and can now walk up into that river and clear away Unicorn vision.
Good that they can, but the fights are only going to get harder. Nomanz, in the meantime, has backed, has cleared out bottom wave, and has picked up his death.
They're going for it.
AHaHaCiK waiting in the darkness. He has the crab, he has good vision. Nomanz.
Humanoid doesn't have TP, Innaxe does. This is going to go horribly wrong for Splyce.
They're now retreating, they're now pulling up, and AHaHaCiK can just start to slow these members as they walk away. The TP now being responded. The entire team grouping up to force this Baron down. They have a single mountain to match Splyce's. And they can, in theory, shred this objective. They don't want to take the risk. They don't want to take the 50-50. Scratch that. They're ready to go. Splyce are just backing off. What are these backs being channeled? They have to contest this one. They can't afford to give this one up. TP now coming in on the backside. That could be the difference maker. What is going to happen? Vizicsacsi in the midst of everything. Curtain Call now coming in. Humanoid can start to look to hunt. Multiple members slowed up, but a beautiful binding from Edward will stop that play. Instead, the Baron, the center of attention. A lot of chunked health bars on the enemy team.
Unicorns of Love coming in around on the corner. It's down to about 6,000 HP. They're going to poke them down.
Right in the GP ult. That's not where you want to be. Nomanz just has 40 flashes, and he's not afraid. Humanoid into the backline. Can he be the difference maker? He goes gold, and he buys time. He buys space for the team. I don't think it's going to be enough. The hook comes in. Edward, not the target they needed. Humanoid down. 5 strong in the UOL.
And
AHaHaCiK doesn't even get hooked. Norskeren so low. Prey Seeker goes in. He sends it into death. That's it. The side step from Kobbe costs to support life. Vizicsacsi, you're so tanky, but it does not matter. The Cho'Gath gonna get walked down here. They cut through Vizicsacsi's health bar. Nomanz on a killing spree. Unicorns of Love tie up the gold, and with this Baron, they will take the lead.
They'll have the Baron, the Elder Drake after it. Dracos, it doesn't feel like the Unicorns ever left Berlin. The crowd still chanting their name. And now they have everything in their favor. The items, the levels, the neutrals. Splyce seem to have lost it all here as they were the ones to start this Baron buff. But Unicorns, they have so much damage from range. Nomanz just flashing straight on in to the fight. And then Humanoid caught out here will lose his life as the rest of the team can stall and eventually chase down with a beautiful snipe onto Norskeren to allow Innaxe into the fight and to pick up even more.
It could have been even worse. Of course, Vizicsacsi just gets walked down, but what a story for the Unicorns of Love, the best team in the LCL, in the CIS. You know, we saw the top half of this map on Vega. It looked good. They were so close. They lost out in a 5-game series to PvP to not make it to MSI main stage. Here today, they're not against PvP, they're against Splyce, the third best team in the LEC, and they took it late game. And right now, it looks like Splyce absolutely cannot match them.
Unicorns finally taking the gold lead. Look at that graph. The first time all game, and it comes after the 35-minute mark. Everyone talks about the late game kings of Splyce, but it usually comes with some late game insurance policies they did not have in this game. Unicorns, they do, and now they have an inhibitor tower on top.
And they're gonna walk in. They're gonna break an inhib. Humanoid still fishing for a flank. Ender, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but what do you actually do if you're Splyce in this scenario?
Well, you just have to play wave clear right now. The only fights I think they win, they have to fight with a numbers advantage. And against the Baron, against the Elder Drake, you don't get to choose where the fight happens. You can just try to prolong the inevitable. So they just need to wait and then try to find picks. You get outscaled, but you're not going to win in the next 2 minutes.
And look, the only silver lining on this cloud is that it's a baby Elder Drake here. They got one dragon early in this game. That's only 90 damage. 45 is the base plus the additional single dragon. Humanoid, maybe this is the different fight, but the hook does not connect. Boss continues to step forward, continues to poke. Vizicsacsi doesn't take any damage, but the rest of his team sure does. The rupture not gonna matter much. UOL are just walking in and taking objectives from Splyce. There is nothing they can do.
They're going to keep taking more too, Dracos. They have minions in mid lane and bottom lane. The question is, they just want to siege for the Nexus. The answer is going to be no, instead trying to set up for that top lane, as both Elder and Baron will be timing out in the next minute. It looks like they're just going to be stalling out for that next siege forward. Look at the items coming through now too. Innaxe finishing off the Zhonya's Hourglass. You already thought it was hard to kill him with a black shield and the Kale ult on top of his face. Now he's got invulnerability. That's just impossible.
And this is one of the things about a champion that can build hybrid builds. Normally as an AD carry, you don't really have any ideal defensive items. Yes, you have QSS, and the situations where that good, it's wonderful, but you don't get a Banshees. You're not supposed to get a Zhonya's. Kai'Sa breaks all those rules. Kale, in the late game, breaks all those rules. Those champions are sustained damage that you cannot burst down.
And Unicorns of Love are winning the fights before they even break out. Because of their ranged poke with the Kai'Sa W, the Cannon Barrage from Boss, the slows from AHaHaCiK, it becomes a 100 to 80% fight here when Splyce get chunked out like Kobbe does right there. So they have some sort of a flank built up. They know that if they wait, they're just going to lose a third inhibitor potentially without a lot of wave clear options on their side. So they got to make a move.
Maybe the flank can come through. A lot of good vision control set up by the side of Splyce. Xerxe and Humanoid can come in. They can try to be invisible. But of course, the tether from Morgana denies that Akali invisibility, something we have to keep our eyes on. The tower goes down. Chachi's caught out. The Lantern will take him back. They're not going to burn any more cooldowns than they need to, but there's the Cannon Barrage. Getting the fight kicked off. Boss stepping forward. He's fearless, but he's locked up again and again and again. And this is the time. Splyce see their window of opportunity. And the window closes. They're not going to do anything. The Nocturne ult is gone.
Splyce can never pull the trigger because they don't have the engage tools necessary. When you have a lead, you can find picks, but when there's minions running into your base and you're playing on the back foot, it's never going to happen unless Chachi just decides to flash on in there with the Righteous Glory. Unicorns of Love are playing it smart. They're waiting for the minions, now pushing up into mid lane. The top lane will be in their favor soon, and with the power of Nomanz, he can just walk up and whack away at this tower.
Mid lane is crashing, bot lane is crashing. Those super minions, someone has to answer them. Someone also has to answer the 5 strong of UOL on the top side. Innaxe goes in. He forces Norskeren back, but he's used the ultimate. One defensive tool is gone. To the side of the Unicorns of Love. Splyce trying as best as they can to hold on, but they're just going to have to walk away. They're going to have to give up their third inhibitor. And if Unicorns of Love don't make a mistake, if there's no opening, that might be it though. AHaHaCiK getting overconfident, stepping forward. The knockup won't land from Vizicsacsi. Humanoid continues to fish on the side, but the vision control they had moments ago is gone. UOL have cleared it out. He now has to walk into Fog of War to try to find a fight. It will not happen. And we're going to have double super minion spawns, Ender. If Splyce win this one, it feels impossible.
Slow and steady will win the race here for the Unicorns of Love. They have all 3 inhibitors down. Baron in a minute, Elder in a minute and 20 seconds. All you have to do is set up your vision now. A little bit light on that at the moment, but they can walk on into enemy territory, get the waves pushing, and Splyce should never realistically have the chance to enter into the river. And if they do, that's when you jump on them. That's when you make them punished.
Consistency. Now what Unicorns of Love need, they know how to win. They know the Baron is theirs for the taking if they set it up smart. If they skip steps, something could happen. Something could turn against them. Yes, the odds are heavily stacked in their favor. You can still lose if you play a bad hand. Unicorns of Love fishing. Once again, looking for something, looking to find Vizicsacsi. It's a big hitbox on the Cho'Gath, but not the target you really want to engage on.
All flashes are up for Splyce, so if they were to try and find an engage, it would be now. But if you get bound up, you're going to get taken down low.
Lock onto Vizicsacsi. Ward gets placed down, but will not stop Vizicsacsi from exiting. Ulti now comes out. They've gone it out on the Kale, but the Kale is going to stop that right in his tracks. Xerxe now going to be in the middle of the team. It's not going the way that they wanted. Vizicsacsi with the stone plate proc is not tanky enough. Kobbe has to run for the hills. The Kha'Zix is trying to find it, but a hero hook from Norskeren will keep him alive. Splyce have remained alive in the game, and now they want to turn it Humanoid. This is the moment that he's been waiting for. The hooks from Norskeren. They finally connect. It was a long drought, but Spice are back in this game. The shutdown comes through, and they're looking to take control.
Look at the base, though. Minions in on the Nexus. The towers are going to go down. They have to teleport back before they lose everything. They cannot start up the Baron.
We're buying time. Splyce, hold on, but they have not won the game, not yet.
Even after the one fight where they have to commit so much to go forward, they lose both Nexus towers as the price. Both neutral objectives do still stand. And Splyce, without a jungler, cannot rush back onto the map, cannot try to take them down. It was a brilliant fight from them to be able to turn around everything and focus down Innaxe, get that kill onto him early.
And I got to give credit to Norskeren in that fight, hitting 2 clutch hooks. Really the difference maker. You've seen the last few fights, has not been able to find it. Difficult against a team with Black Shield with so much mobility as well. Hits them when they matter most, stops Kobbe from going down to the likes of AHaHaCiK. Pressure now on. Norskeren
going again.
A lot more confident. He knows the enemy team is split up. This is a position they cannot afford to take. But that's the Nocturne ult, currently traded for nothing. Boss is able to walk away. Innaxe still has flash in the fight to come. It is not the same story for Kobbe, for Norskeren, for Humanoid. Xerxe and Vizicsacsi have theirs. Maybe they can be the difference, but this is a CIS special. Sneaking the objective, no vision. They don't know where Innaxe is. They must have to sniff this one out soon.
It's the right setup here for the Unicorns of Love. All they have to do is hold their position around the Baron. That is the second Elder. They should win the fight, but even then, all they have to do is wait for Splyce to come around this objective. With minions down in the bottom lane, there's a possibility they could just try and teleport in onto the base.
Clutch ward on the top side of your screen right next to Boss. Saving the day for Splyce. They throw in the blue trinket just to say, hey, we know you're doing this. Trying to buy time for the team to come back together. 5 members there, Edward fishing. At any moment a binding hits, it could mean the end of a fight. A lot of pressure on both sides. 7K, 11K dropping. Baron getting lower and lower. Nomanz just shredding through this one. Humanoid now moving in. Can they move over the wall? Can they steal this? They have this.
Chachi!
The flash in! The feast! There is no chance to contest against the likes of a Cho'Gath, but the fight may still turn against them. They're trying to get it out. Comes the curtain call. Humanoid still off to the side. Vizicsacsi still going down. The rest of UOL will retreat. Splyce take the Baron. A
Look at him!
Innaxe goes in, takes out the jungler. This could be the difference maker. It's still 5 members strong from the enemy team. Innaxe will not bite off more than he can chew, but Humanoid has something to say about the rest of the team collapsing. If he kills Innaxe, maybe they hold on. Maybe he can be the difference maker. Humanoid gets taken down in the exchange, though not worthwhile. 2 members left on the side of Splyce.
Splyce stole the Baron, but they lost 3 members for it, and that is an exposed Nexus for 30 more seconds. At least minions coming down in the top lane. The Unicorns of Love have only one structure standing in their way, and a game 1 victory against Splyce. It is just Kobbe and Norskeren left to try and defend against this siege, and the Unicorns are going to take it all.
They're going to take the game, and there's nothing they can do. Unicorns of Love take it to the late game, and they take down Splyce.
It was the Unicorns of Love that went for those late game insurance policies, and after finding just one fight around the Baron, around that 30-minute mark, everything went in their favor. It was still a close battle between these 2 teams, but at the end of the day, it was the Unicorns of Love that came out on top.
Just a wild game. You have to feel Splyce 7K up at one point in that game. It didn't look like there was any way they could lose. They pick one bad fight, and the game instantly turns against them.
Look, Dracos, the Unicorns of Splyce had all the tools they needed to close out this game, but there were multiple mistakes that came through. Norskeren getting picked inside of the jungle when they had their Baron, then finding a fight 4 versus 5 without their super fed Akali. This was by all means a game that Splyce should have won, but they dropped the ball multiple times in the mid game, which has been a recurring problem for them, and the Unicorns with their draft were able to punish that very heavily.
And Splyce first picking a Cho'Gath. I think a bit surprising. Could have taken the Kayle for themselves. Could have taken one of these high priority. The Xayah, of course, banned away. And was someone going to ban that Cho'Gath? Was that going to be the difference maker? Because Kobbe had to stay back in every single fight. That's enough from us to give us their thoughts on Game 1. Here is the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Give me 4 more of those, please. What a fantastic game.
What is Splyce doing?
And what am I doing with these analysts, both who predicted a clean 3-0? There's no doubt.
This should have been a Game 1 win for Splyce. Ender said it. They had all of the tools to win this game. And it's like, why do we have to keep coming back to the same issue for Splyce? Mid-game issues, playing around Baron. Why does this team fail multiple times when it comes to this situation?
I'm asking the questions here, damn it.
Can I just say, I'm really enjoying being the only non-European representative on this analyst desk.
He's loving this. He loves this.
That was a real fun game.
I live for the drama. I love the excitement. Let's start with the picks and bans. Last pick, Jhin, after 4th pick, Akali, surprised me a touch.
Yeah.
Cho'Gath caught me off guard. Vedius, what do you think?
So, I ultimately think that this draft from UOL was greedy, because something that Ejim and I were saying was that the whole point of this draft is it relies on your opponents to make mistakes, because you have no control in the early game. And we saw that multiple times, right? And one of the problems with it is this was something that they drafted against Clutch. Clutch made the mistakes, and they got away with it. And so my logic coming into this game was you can't do this against a better team, because the better team will be able to close out cleaner, and they have so much more control over the early game. Whoopsie. You'll just find yourself in a massive deficit.
And I want to talk about on the other side of the coin, right? Don't want to spend too much time on draft, but I think for Splyce, you have to say early, I think this is genuinely smart. Maybe it's something to do with Vizicsacsi's champion pool, but Cho'Gath as an answer to GP, Boss hasn't played it throughout the play-ins group stage yet, right? It's been banned away 4 times. The one game that it was open was first picked, and they were on red side, so they didn't get their hands on it. So if you want to leave something like this open and then play a team fighting site like tank that can attack the side lanes with the Cho'Gath, you have the burst with the Nocturne. I think it was intelligent, but obviously the mid-game blunders just throw it all away.
Let's get to some of the early game decisions, because the level 1 play out of Splyce, reading, prepping, understanding UOL, and then they come back to punish him.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is very prepared strategy. Jhin in towards the top side, Norskeren and Xerxe just down the river, and Boss is just like, oh crap, okay, I'm gonna lose my flash, has to get himself out of there. And then the follow-up play with the revisit from Xerxe and being able to get a pre-level 6 gank kill on Nocturne, super useful.
Yeah, I loved what Splyce did in the early game, and it very much ties in what we were saying in the draft. The Kha'Zix can't do a huge amount, because even in the counter ganks, he's going to end up getting punished because of how weak his 2 solo laners are. And then notice how Xerxe abandons his camps, immediately comes to the bot side for another gank, and look, the Akali is roaming down, because again, the solo laners have control. And this is something that's so important in terms of the early game. UOL had very few options. Every time they wanted to make a move, all of this deep vision existed from the side of Splyce that could track what Kha'Zix was doing, they could match him, they could counter gank, or they could just attack on the opposite side. So the entire early game, heavily in the favor of Splyce. And what they should have been able to do was close out cleanly off the back of it.
But they couldn't, because...
But they couldn't.
There was a Unicorn Baron that was picked up. So this will bring us to our next replay here. And Vedius, just before we came live, you said we need to talk so much about this Baron.
And this was the deciding factor. Xerxe going in without the Akali even being alive. He then loses his life, and the thing about this choke point is it's very difficult for the rest of Splyce to follow up. You want to be playing front to back. You want to be having this Cho'Gath soak up as much of the damage as possible while your damage dealers are just threatening the backline, and they did not execute this fight the way they wanted to, and UOL were able to bounce back into the game.
Yeah, and compositionally, they require the one hit. The Akali, the Nocturne, the Cho'Gath all have those buttons to just demolish one carry and then take over the team fight. And everything we were talking about early game is no longer true. That was a level 15 Akali TPing into a front-to-back team fight with a level 16 Kale. Nomanz had well and truly come online, and for a comp that was greedy for UOL, that was just a greedy start there from Splyce.
And of course, you mentioned the abilities on the Splyce composition to insta-give or to delete an individual champion. Kale ultimate plus Hourglass on Kai'Sa. These abilities end up coming clutch. There were so many fights in the mid to late game, but one thing I did want to highlight very quickly was the Kale and Kai'Sa combo that became crucially pivotal. Exceptional engages over and over again. And just look at the Kale ultimate onto Innaxe's Kai'Sa, diving all the way.
And this is just super sick. It's AP Kai'Sa, so he does more damage in the burst rotation, and Kale coming over the top. You can see the zone control on 3 champions highlighted. This is honestly just cool League of Legends. Like this is non-standard stuff the casters were thinking about. Do you change up the build path here on the Kai'Sa, and why is he going AP? That's the reason. It's no longer the Twitch and the Taric. It's the Kai'Sa Kale dive bomb into the backline.
And if it wasn't for Humanoid, the game could have just very well ended there. All 3 members of Splyce were immediately forced back. They could have gone to the Baron, secured it, and then looked to end. If it wasn't for a last-ditch effort fight from Splyce that dragged the game out a little bit longer, this should have been a little bit more one-sided, but overall, I'm just very disappointed in what I saw from Splyce, because it is the same issues from the regular season. And as someone who's cast them for the entire split, to see them make these same kind of mistakes, people randomly getting caught out of position, forcing fights in situations that do not support you, this is not going to be good enough to compete in the world's group stages. And Unicorns of Love right now drafted in a way which is, we're going to punish them. And they did so perfectly.
It is absolutely the case, and even more disappointment after seeing how strong that opening was. Unicorns of Love have chosen red side after an intense game 1. I can't wait to see what is coming next. We'll see you in a few minutes. Bye.
Humanoid on the way. There's 4 versus 1 under the tower. Innaxe's going down.
Xerxe taking the tower for now, just getting the setup, just trying to make it as clean as possible.
Bot lane. Dive in progress.
Ulti comes out. Humanoid Doge just waiting. Complete back in right as it falls. Nomanz backing out. Black Shield is there. Humanoid shut down. Humanoid on the backside. Eyes on the Akali. 1 shut down. But the Akali can't just clean up. UOL. They'll just look like food to the rest of the team. Humanoid, can he go in? The ultimate goes. Available. He wants to get 1. He gets shut down in an instant. Vizicsacsi with the stone plate proc is not tanky enough. Kobbe has to run for the hills. The Kha'Zix is trying to find it, but a hero hook from Norskeren will keep him alive. Splyce have remained alive in the game, and now they want to turn it. Humanoid, this is the moment that he's been waiting for. The hooks from Norskeren. They're going to take the game, and there's nothing they can do. Unicorns of Love take it to the late game, and they take down Splyce.
We came to win. We lost before, but never again. Back on our grind, you know what it is. We gotta win.